we're very thankful that, we kind of get to share our story. And when it comes to pediatricians, we think, oh, they just check the medical stuff for our kids. But I don't think we realize how pivotal and how important these pediatricians are as simply just new parent coaching.
How do you influence language and communication in your home so that they have exposure to different languages beyond just English?
Christoph is he's multilingual.
Trilingual.
Our children are immersed in a lot of different cultures and different languages. We decided that, we would like our kids to at least be bilingual. And so I kind of told them, I was like, I only speak English, so pick the language you want them to learn. And Spanish made the most sense for us. And
when my dad is around or my brother's around, I try to speak to them in Swiss German.
But there's tons of research to support that children who are exposed to more than one language before the age of 3 to 4 have a higher propensity to excel in school. It's just a stimulating part of the brain.
Welcome to The Critical Window, brain building in the first 3 years. Join us in discussing how parents, healthcare professionals, experts in early childhood development, and community agencies can support a child's first 3 years of development. We unpack the science and share practical strategies for giving every child the best possible start.
Thank you for joining me today. Originally, when we had first met and we were talking, Carlton introduced us. I was just captivated by the intentionality that both of you have in parenting, that, you have a great deal of expertise coming from teaching yourself and then the cultural influences that you're able to bring into your family, but just the intentionality around using what you've created purposefully and then serving others. So I really do want to highlight that as we talk today. You may not fully realize the sphere of influence that you have, just how you show up and live your life, but you really do. And I want to highlight that. And then second to that, Carlton and I were talking recently about, what do our listeners, as we're starting this podcast series, what do our listeners want to hear, what adds value to our work? And one thing that came up was trust and transparency in the healthcare system. And I'm like, oh, I know the perfect people to talk to, because when we were talking a couple months ago, I think it's been now, you talked about how encouraged you were by your pediatrician and how you felt like you left more educated and empowered. And Christoph, you specifically talked about you were able to see how maybe unique or different that experience was, because I believe it's your sister or sister-in-law who had just a different experience in her relationship with her pediatrician. So as best I can, I want to pull all that in together. But before I get too far into the weeds, Emily and Christoph, if you just share a little bit about, who you are and a little bit about your career before becoming parents, just so that we can kind of get an idea of who you are as people without actually being here with you.
Okay, so my name's Christoph. This is my wife, Emily. So we met at UWF as freshmen, and we ended up getting married a couple years later. And so our first jobs coming out of college were at a private school downtown, Episcopal Day School. And that's kind of where my I guess, professional career, or both our professional careers started, was at this school that we got to teach at. I taught middle school and also kindergarten. I started off as Spanish, and then I moved to the physical education, and I was also in charge of all their enrichment programs. So everything after school, I got to kind of supervise and also facilitate. So I got to deal with all the ages, from kindergarten all the way to 8th grade. And I got to also coach the kids. So I got to be with these students in the classrooms, but also after school, in the more unstructured time. And that's kind of where my passion for, educating, but also, just kind of working with kids. I always, growing up, worked in, the kids ministries at the churches we were at. And so I was always very involved. I was also very more, I guess, childlike spirit. So I kind of connected with these kids and kind of, I enjoyed the dynamic of, just, being yourself and having fun. And so once I got to the other side of it, where I had to be the adult in the room, it was really neat to see how just kind of being kindred spirit, it does make a big impact, make big difference when it comes to, dealing with kids. And that's kind of where I've, created this this passion and love for, kind of helping to shape the future generations. And Emily's kind of similar, but with a lot younger ages. And now that we have our own kids, our firstborn was born in 2020, right when COVID, everything shut down, everything. We found out we were having we were pregnant was right before the shutdown, right after. And so kind of navigating, becoming parents was always a dream of ours. And then so once that dream was fulfilled and, our firstborn making us parents, and it was a very kind of all the skills and all the things we learned over the years, teaching and working in kids ministries, or Emily would babysit and nanny in the summers, all that practice and all that, all those different skills that we picked up, we kind of got to use those and utilize those. And so it's really neat to see. I don't want to say like that we got to practice on other people's kids, but essentially, it kind of taught us, okay.
We learned some experience.
Yes, experience. But we learned what works and what doesn't work. And so once it came to our children, we had kind of like had mental notes of what we wanted to apply and what we wanted to try to, for our own family. And so now I don't want to say we're successful parents, but, we're parents that enjoy our children, that, we enjoy our dynamic. Everywhere that I go, I want to take our family with me because they're such a blessing. But I think we learned to put in the work early. And I think that's where a lot of pediatricians and you guys come in, because that is essentially creating a good foundation for parents and first-time parents there's no book on really how to parent other than just doing it. And so we're very thankful that, we kind of get to share our story, and that's kind of my journey into, getting to the place we are now.
I always wanted to work with children since I was really young. And so I actually started off as a nursing major when I went to UWF. And I said I always wanted to be in pediatrics. And then I kind of started getting into nursing. I was like, this is not for me. And so somebody encouraged me to take an education class, and I fell in love with it. I love the part of behavioral management in a classroom and getting to work with, you have 20 different kids in the classroom, and that's 20 different personalities, and how to manage your classroom while still allowing the children to grow and be themselves. And so my degree from UWF is in education, but I also have a minor in special ed and ESOL. So I always dreamed of just being able to work with different types of kids and being able to learn different things from each kid. So like Christoph said, we worked at EDS, and I started there in the kindergarten classroom. I actually got to work for a teacher that was going on maternity leave. And so that was my first experience, and I loved it. And I loved the little kids. I always knew I wanted to be with early education versus the older kids. And I really enjoyed it. And then I was able to take over their integrated language and arts program. And so basically that's where we took all of our enrichment classes and we integrated them into one classroom. And so I would teach Spanish, and we would work on art projects and do music and education. And it also being a spiritual school, we did Christian education. And so it was really fun to be able to take so many different things and implement them into one classroom and one subject and one curriculum for the kids. And that really taught me how to be adaptable, especially having to not only teach 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, and then 5 and kindergartners, but also taking different curriculum and teaching them to the different age groups. So I think education a lot into my parenting roles has really taught me to be more adaptable. And children change all the time. So I think anybody who has a kid knows when they're a baby, like you get 3 good nights of solid sleep and you're like, I did it. And you like do everything the same, and then they change on you. And so as a parent, you have to learn to adapt. And as your children grow, you have to learn to adapt. And their personalities are all different. Our first son, he's more quiet, and he's very much like I'm going to do it this way, and I like it this way. And then we had our second child, and I learned very quickly, like, he's different. He's his own person. And so growing into that as a parent and being able to take what I learned from education and put that into our parenthood and the way that we teach our children and work with our children has just been such a gift, and something that we also love to be able to share with, our friends who have young children, and getting to kind of just tell them, like, it gets easier, things get smoother, or this is a hiccup, or this is what you can do. And it's just something we are both so very passionate about.
I love that because there are a number of families who don't have the wealth of experience that you bring to this parenting table, right? And so there may be some people who are entering into this as a single mom or maybe even a single dad.
Yeah.
And so, one, just to have that built-in village that you have. So you come very well equipped, but as you said at the very beginning, you have experiences, but then doing it with each individual child, and you have 3 children now.
Yes.
Each one is very unique, different schedule. I think the word adaptable is a perfect title for just the whole concept of parenting. You have to be adaptable. And I continue to read and hear, people who feel very strongly about, not requiring a certain sleep schedule by 6 weeks. And when I was raising my children, there were certain social expectations that you do things a certain way, and that may or may not have been the best for the child. It was more parent friendly. And I think that we continue to evolve and learn and grow in what's best for our children, and you seem to be getting it right. But tell me this, as educators, as a background, what completely shocked you or caught you off guard that you were like, oh, I didn't plan for this or expect this?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think there's like probably a multitude of things. I think when you are a teacher and you have a classroom with multiple kids as it is, right? And then you become a parent of multiple children and having to manage them in a way all day long. Like, what do I do with this tiny little human all day long to not just let them be there, but, help enrich them and help them continue to grow. I think for a long time that for me was like, okay, how do I do this? Like, how do I take their entire day and like help them grow, but also not feel like I'm doing Groundhog Day every day since I am a stay-at-home mom now. I think that was really kind of shocking for me. And as they grow, they, not that they expect more from you, but they pull more from you. That just like as a child grows in school, each year you build off of, the math skills you learned from the year before or the reading skills. And so even at home with little children, in the beginning, like, they're just learning how to roll, but then they kind of want to roll the other way. And so you have to kind of help them. And I think sometimes it's almost taking our own minds and bringing it down to a child's level or even a baby's level and being like, okay, they can't do these things. Like, how can I do that for them? And kind of slowing down as an adult and saying, how can I help, my tiny little, we have a 5-month-old baby right now. And, sometimes he gets stuck on his back, and it can get frustrating where you're like, just roll over, just hurry up and roll over. So I think it's kind of those smaller, minute things that you don't realize before you become a parent, or just like simple things like introducing foods. And I think kind of like you said, also the pressures that you can feel as a mom, a young mom in this day and age with social media, especially. All my friends are like, oh, does your child sleep through the night? Like, what sleep sack do they use? What swaddle do they use? And there's so much information out there that sometimes that is really overwhelming, especially as a parent, to have to take in all the time and know which is going to work for your child and which is not going to work for your child, and kind of take and compartmentalize what is going to work for your family versus whatever you see on social media or Instagram or Facebook or wherever.
Yeah, and I think for me, because I taught kindergarten, so they're 5-6-year-old kids. And so I never got to deal with like newborns. Like even growing up, like a newborn for me was scary because I was like, man, this is fragile. So if I mess up, like they're not going to be happy. But I realized like once they get to like 1-year-olds, I realized how smart the kids are, even at that age, like to learn simple, like, I want more, or sign language terms to help the kids communicate to us. So I was like baffled. It's like, wow, like we're teaching our kids all these things at under like a year old or under 2 years old, like all these different things that I was like, I had no idea their brains were this, able to comprehend such things. And so that's what really surprised me. And then I would say the next thing would be is I was surprised that like when we came home with our newborn, our first, I was in my mind I thought, now I'm a parent, I have to know everything. But I was like, that wasn't the case. It's like I just need to learn each day something new, and as each day goes by, I became more and more capable, more knowledgeable of how to be a parent, how to be. I didn't have to have it all figured out on day one.
Yeah.
It's each day I learned something new. I never changed a diaper before our first one was born. So day one, I learned how to change a diaper, and then day two, I learned what burping was. I had no idea I didn't even know they burped. So like, I thought, and so learning all these new things I made me realize I don't have to know it all on one day or the first week. Or it's great to have courses and pre-courses to do, to kind of give you an idea, but it's just enjoying the journey of learning, who your child is, what they enjoy, what they don't enjoy, whether they have a sensitive digestion system, or whether they like to sleep on the side or on their back or their stomach once they're able to do certain rolling and movements. So it was nice to know that, wow, I didn't have to feel that pressure. And that's what for me was very nice and refreshing to know. And I think a lot of parents, especially moms, like just take a breath and say, hey, like, I don't need to have it figured out all right now. Like, I will learn as I go, and I'm not going to mess it up,
I think that's where too, having a good pediatrician, like, we had talked about, really plays a key. It makes such a huge difference. And I remember the night we brought our firstborn home, and I was trying to breastfeed and we were having issues with it. And so I knew that the next day we were going to go, meet with the pediatrician to do the weight check and everything. And I remember he looked at me at 3:00 in the morning and was like, we have to be doing something wrong because he was up all night. He was crying. And I was like, it's okay. We're going to get to the doctor tomorrow and they're going to help us. And us personally, our pediatrician has just been such a fresh breath of air to be able to help us as we've navigated just becoming parents and different illnesses our children have had, or different developmental things that, I've had questions about. And I think that really is becoming a mom and being a mom of young children. Sometimes it could kind of feel like it can make or break those first year of their life. And how do I manage this small human being without having to go to Google all the time? I think sometimes it can feel like the right place to go, but then you go down the Google rabbit hole and it could scare you even more or make you start to question even more things. So I know for us, our pediatrician has been such an answered prayer in so many different ways in our lives. So we tell everyone you need a good pediatrician.
Well, I think they should add to that term pediatrician. It's basically like a newborn coach.
Yeah.
I think when we look for mentoring or other things, we shop around for the best. And I think when it comes to pediatricians, we think, they just check the medical stuff for our kids, but I don't think we realize how pivotal and how important these pediatricians are as simply just new parent coaching that they do. And I know that Build a Brain is now really taking a role in trying to coach parents and in seeing the need and how much information and resources that new parents especially need.
Yeah.
Well, I love that term, a newborn coach or even a new parent coach, and how they can coexist. You're right. You can read and take courses and watch things on social media, but until you get in there and experience it, and Emily, I can relate to those middle of the nights. What am I doing wrong here? And he's not, breastfeeding in the way that I had imagined in my mind. That's tough. That's really, really tough. And it's easy for parents to give up because, you have other children in the home vying for your attention, or maybe the person is, that you share your home with isn't supportive of you doing this. A variety of reasons that it's really easy to give up on those things that you want to have in place. But when, brass tacks and you're tired and baby's crying, it's hard. So knowing that you had that appointment and then having a positive experience can make or break so many positive future interactions. That's good to hear. Did Dr. Foland, and I did reach out to her, and we'll be incorporating her into this podcast. She's just a delightful, kind person, and she just happens to be a pediatrician, right?
Hey everyone, it's Stephanie. I just wanted to pause here for a moment because you're about to hear directly from Dr. Foland. Since this episode is all about the impact a thoughtful, supportive pediatrician can have, we thought it'd be meaningful to include her voice in the conversation. Here's a quick message from Dr. Foland herself.
Being a pediatrician is about so much more than just caring for little bodies. It's about building relationships, not just with children, but with their parents too. It's about earning trust and offering encouragement. Yes, I share medical guidance, but just as importantly, I'm aiming to empower parents with confidence, make a connection, and provide the tools they need to thrive in those early years. Because let's be honest, parenting can be and feel very overwhelming. There's no instruction manual, and every baby is different. So I try to create a space where parents feel seen and supported. I want them to know you're enough. You're doing better than you think. One of the things I love the most about pediatrics is helping parents to tune into their baby's world. Babies may not use words at first, but they're always communicating. From day one, I encourage parents to talk and sing and read to their baby. Even if it feels silly, your baby is listening. They're taking it all in. I often say a parent is a child's first and most important teacher, especially in those first 5 years. And it's true. Those early moments, rocking them to sleep, making silly sounds, singing the same lullaby over and over, those aren't just sweet memories. They're building the foundation for language, emotional development, and learning. Music, for instance, is such a powerful tool. It's not just something that warms the heart, it lights up the brain. I love when families sing to their children, or use simple signs, or narrate their day out loud. All of that beautiful back and forth interaction builds communication skills that will serve them for life. And if you speak more than one language at home, please keep using all of them. Bilingual or multilingual environments are a gift. You're not confusing your child, you're expanding their brain. Another thing I talk a lot about is tummy time. It might seem small, but starting tummy time around 2 weeks of age is a game changer. It strengthens the muscles that help your baby lift their head, roll, crawl, and eventually walk. I always smile when I hear parents say they're getting down on the floor with their baby. I say you need the floor to work your core so you can go off and explore. Oh, and the mirrors. I love mirrors for babies. I have them all over my office. When a baby sees their own reflection and smiles, it's more than cute, it's brain building. Mirrors help babies learn about themselves, their expressions, and even body parts. It's another playful way to bond, teach, and connect with your baby. I'll tell you something personal too. My first child arrived 2 months early. And even though I had been a pediatrician for 5 years by then, that experience changed me. It reminded me that no amount of training prepares you completely for becoming a parent. It taught me empathy on a whole new level and how deeply parents need support, especially when things don't go according to plan. So when I see a parent catch that first smile, hear their baby coo or giggle, or see them sign, all done for the first time, I celebrate with them. Those moments mean everything. They're the signs that things are unfolding just as they should. Parenting isn't perfect. It's beautiful and messy and magical. And I want you to know that you're not alone. We're in this together. And I tell them thank you. Thank you for letting me be a part of your journey.
And with that, let's jump back into the conversation.
What did she do that allowed you to feel safe to ask questions and not be judged? Was it something she did or said that made you feel that way?
I think our first impression that really really impressed us was that, we came and we introduced ourselves, and she met our newborn. And we had a list of questions we had, based on okay, is this normal? He's doing this, is this, and so we came in, did the weight check, and before we could even ask these questions, she was just, saying, hey, this is normal. Don't worry about this, answering our questions before we could even ask them. And whether that's, she kind of does her homework and she already knows kind of what most parents ask or what they're worried about in that first, meetup with the pediatrician. And so just that alone made such a big impression on us that we're like, wow, like we didn't even have to ask her these questions. She already knew to tell us, and she already knew that this is something that we may be concerned about, or hey, why is, with John, this, the different colors that the babies come out with, and these are things I've never heard of before as a dad, and all of a sudden I'm hearing all these terms, and all these parents, I'm sure, are worried about, the baby's skin and like, oh, does it look yellow? I remember Emily asking, was like, hey, like, under this fluorescent light, it looks really yellow. But like, it's just like, she was like she was like trying to see it without it being there. But her just simply just, in such a gentle way of saying, hey, like, don't worry about this. Like at the next meetup, you might see this, you might have this happen. They might experience these things, and, don't worry about it. Like, we'll meet, we'll kind of show you what it's like, or if there's something that you need to be worried about. And just taking that ease from us, any stress or like kind of like concerns that we may have had. And I know a lot of people may not have that same experience, and we were just very blessed and fortunate to have that experience. But for us, like I know Emily, she kind of put out a feeler out to see who is the best pediatrician that we can go and take our son to, and she came highly recommended. And so for us, like, it was one of those like, wow, okay. And the people that recommended her, we are people that we trust and that we have relationships with. And so kind of having that mutual relationship already, where she was the mutual friend with our already friends. So it was really nice to know that that was such a nice way of meeting her, when it was, we already found out so many information and beautiful, testimonies of how she's dealt with their children.
I think her gentleness, when you have a newborn, as you know, like everything already kind of feels really heightened as it is. And even as our children have grown, many times where I've just like walked into her office and she's so calm. And so calm, but yet still knows, like she's like, this is what this is what we're going to do. And even if I brought something to her and I was like, I don't know about this, she always listens. And then, she will share her professional opinion. And I've never felt pressured by anything with her. And she's always been so kind in a way, not to make me feel like, oh, well, this is how it has to be, or this is what you're supposed to do. When as a mom, you're just like wondering and questioning things, and she'll listen to you, and she'll just hear you, and she'll hear your worries or your concerns. And I think that as a mom is really, really helpful, because you have so many questions as it is. And so to be able to just feel like my questions are heard no matter what, and feel that, she receives them well and she respects my questions. I think that is such a huge part in being able to feel confident in her abilities to, help take care of our children with us. And like Christoph said, she, I remember I was like, what are all these grunting noises? I had no idea that newborns were so noisy. And she was like, that's normal. And then she would tell me, like, these are the sounds that you would be concerned about, or these are the different things you should worry about. And even our second child, when he was about 10 months old, he got RSV, and I called that morning and they were like, bring him in right away. And she came right away to see him, and she was so calm, even though knowing I was, really worried about him and like, what should we do? And she was like, this is our game plan. This is what we're going to do. We're going to follow up in a few days, and feeling like, okay, she's going to help me get through, this virus and what we need to do. And she told me, this is what you need to do. If this happens, you need to go to the ER. If this happens, and just feeling like I didn't just walk in the room and she just kind of was like, okay, here you go. Have a good day. Like, go figure it out. Rather, she's like really involved in our kids' lives. And even like previous appointments, like she remembers things about our firstborn when he was born. And, I'll go to our appointment for our third baby boy, and she's like, oh, don't you remember? Like, your firstborn had this. Yeah. And so that for me is like so special, that I know she has many, many, many patients, but that she can remember something from almost 5 years ago when my, first baby came in and what we were dealing with. So we're incredibly grateful for her.
But I know that a lot of, people, they have every pediatrician office is not the same, Unfortunately, well, I wish they were all the same. And it is one of those things that where, you do have to build a relationship with the people that you're entrusting your kids' health with, or it's just learning to know that, okay, like, our Dr. Foland, she has children of her own, and she said many times, like, I would never do something or recommend something I wouldn't do to my own children.
Yeah.
And to know that, okay, wow, like, she truly like practices what she believes and what she says. And so for me, that was really, really, refreshing to hear. And I'm not sure that that's every pediatrician says that, but to know that, that we're being treated as if she's treating her own children.
Well, one of the things that I heard you say, and I'll stop and acknowledge, I think you are very blessed to be able to work alongside Dr. Foland. She's an incredible, as I mentioned, incredible person, and has a deep well of knowledge through experiences and her medical training. But I think one thing that you've done that could help other families that maybe they don't have the same relationship with their pediatrician is, you mentioned you came in with lots of questions. And sometimes we may feel that because we don't have the medical background, the MD letters after our name, that we aren't equipped to ask questions, or that we shouldn't ask questions. And I think asking questions is an entry point for the pediatrician, one, to answer those questions and to just validate you, and two, for them to perhaps engage in a back and forth relationship. And one of the things that we're hoping to accomplish with Build a Brain and our Baby Steps book is for families who just may not have the understanding of developmental milestones, may not have the experiences to know that a child should be babbling and imitating and then communicating in some way. Maybe the Baby Steps book gives them some grounded information to go, my child's not doing these things. Should they be doing things? And so it can serve as a vehicle to open up communication, because as what I've heard you sharing, it's about communication, being validated, being seen, and then using each other's expertise in order to just give your children the best opportunities that they can. Would you agree with that?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that each child, like, things click for each child at a different moment in their life. And I know as new parents, it's like, oh, my kid's not doing what my friend's kid's doing, and they're the same age. Then, like, it can create worry or a concern. And, it's one of those things like, hey, like, they all have a certain window to accomplish certain, like, babbling, or, there's a certain window that they can, begin to learn those things. And it doesn't have to be for everyone at week 5, third day, that they have to start this, And I think that's something that's most new parents should realize, like, hey, it's not a competition. I know comparing can be really, especially with social media, saying, oh, my kid's doing this, but then you look at yourself and it might not be the same situation. And I know during COVID, it was really difficult because Emily could only go into some of these appointments by herself. And I wasn't allowed to go in because of all the different things that were going on. And I know that once our son was born, I was starting to be able to go to, like, the checkups and what was really nice is that for me, she wanted me to come because I could kind of ask the harder questions. I could kind of probe and push into the, hey, like, we want to learn, like, you're not, and we want to ask these questions where, by herself, it might be more intimidating, or like, hey, should I? Because there's many times that we walked away from our appointments and it's like, oh, we forgot to ask this, or we should have asked this. And just having a list of things, or just saying, hey, like, let me write down some questions that I might be worried about, or that I might see, it's just precautionary. And it's just one of those things that just where we just encourage everyone to ask more questions, and simply asking, whether it's, especially with the professionals, because they have such a wealth of information.
Absolutely. I think that if there's any takeaway, it's come prepared and ask questions.
Absolutely.
I think everyone has a seat at the table to be able to ask questions. Well, let's stay on communication for a minute. I'm really fascinated. I was a classroom teacher and worked in a number of states and had children who came from multilingual families. I'm really curious about how you are honoring different language and cultural experiences that you bring into your family with 3 boys under the age of 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is the oldest one 5 yet?
He's 4.
It's 4.
So 3, 4, and under.
Talk to me about how do you influence language and communication in your home so that they have exposure to different languages beyond just English?
Well, Christoph is actually he's multilingual. He's
Trilingual.
trilingual. He was born in Switzerland, but his mom is from Bolivia. So he grew up in a house that spoke German, no, Swiss German, German, and then Spanish. His mom spoke to them in Spanish. We also, our church that we're involved in is a bilingual church. It's English and Spanish. His brother has married a Colombian. His sister married a man from Nicaragua. And so our children are immersed in a lot of different cultures and different languages. And we decided that, we would like our kids to at least be bilingual. And so I kind of told him, I was like, I only speak English, so pick the language you want them to learn. And Spanish made the most sense for us because of our church and just a lot of our friends, their children are bilingual. And so he speaks Spanish to our kids, and then I speak English to them. Our boys are primarily English speaking, but they do understand Spanish. And they will use words like our middle boy right now. He's 2, and so he's really working on his language skills. And so when he wants something, he'll say, Mom, I want mucho, instead of more or a lot. And so it's been really fun to kind of watch them learn different words from him. And they are distinguishing, like, dad speaks these words and mom speaks these words. And I can understand Spanish for the most part. I'm just not confident enough to speak it fluently. But like his mom speaks Spanish to them. Most of his aunts and uncles speak Spanish to our kids. And so they kind of have this opportunity to just be immersed in another culture and another language. And it's such a gift to be able to kind of give that to our children, especially as somebody who is not bilingual.
Yeah, and I grew up in a trilingual home where I was spoken to in Spanish and also Swiss German, and my parents, they met speaking English. So growing up in Switzerland, English was kind of like their secret language that none of the kids understood. And so as we got older and older, we kind of learned, okay, this is what this word means in English, or because English was a very popular language, or very a language that everyone was always very eager to learn in Europe. And so as we got older, like watching, we kind of got to hear more and more words and got to understand more, and it became less secretive for my parents to speak it. And so moving here, my mom spoke to me my whole life in Spanish in Switzerland. And so I never responded in Spanish. I understood it all. So learning once around like 12, 14 years old is when I became I started to speak it, because same reason Emily said, I wasn't as confident in my Spanish because of pronunciations or messed up conjugations. But in middle of high school, I was like, oh, whatever. Who cares? I'm just going to speak it, But now with my children, for me, it was a big priority, because for me, I want them to be able to go to, to see grandparents and uncles overseas and be able to understand and hear and communicate with them. Because I've seen it many times where, the languages were never passed on to the next generation. And so for us, and my brother's the same thing. He speaks to his children in Spanish. And when my dad is around or my brother's around, I try to speak to them in Swiss German, because my oldest is now, probably last year, he connected where it's like, okay, my dad says it this way and I and mommy say it this way. And so he's learned, at some point it clicked, okay, this is a different language, this is a different language. And he decided, hey, I want to say it like daddy, or I want to say it like mommy. And so he kind of learned, okay, these are the different languages. And so now, when I speak Swiss German with my dad, he's like, okay, I don't understand. Doesn't fit either of those two categories. So it's and they're so smart at that age
So
that
adaptable.
they just comprehend. And the kids in the neighborhood, they would watch me speaking Spanish to my 3-year-old, 4-year-old.
Go grab the
and,
baby.
Oh, the baby's up. And all the kids in the neighborhood are like, how does he understand Spanish? We're taking Spanish into school, but we have no idea what we're learning. It's how does he at such a young age, understand what you're saying? And so it just became one of those because the brain at that point, at 3-4 years old, when they're learning languages, they just absorb so much. They don't question. It's if I'm pointing to a soccer ball and I'm saying a word, it probably means he's saying soccer ball. So he's like, okay, like, and they don't question, or they don't, resist the doubt, I guess. They just say, okay, he must be pointing to this. They just have that blind faith and, believe whatever you're pointing to is what you're talking about. And the more I speak about that now, and they start learning the verbs and the adjectives, it's kind of neat to see how the brain operates, where like these 9-year-old, 10-year-old kids in the neighborhood couldn't understand, but of course they're not immersed in it. So then it's harder to, if you don't hear it every day, you're not really like sure of what they're talking about. But it's one of those, like, they say hello.
Say hi, Stephanie.
So
Hi there. Say hello.
He usually woke up from nap time.
I think two of the things that you said I wanted to mention, immersing, I think, because you're pulling in some languages that is part of a native tongue, right? You are very familiar with the languages, so you can immerse your children in it, and it's not in siloed, taught in school
Right.
during a scheduled time of the day, right?
Right.
It's in context of what you're doing. And as you talked about, and they're so young, so you know this, but there's tons of research to support that children who are exposed to more than one language before the age of 3 to 4 have a higher propensity to excel in school. It's just a stimulating part to the brain. It's not confusing them, although there's a little bit of research will say at the very beginning when they're receiving formalized instruction in letters, symbols, and phonemes, but it's just for some, just such a quick hiccup, and they just exponentially increase after they, kind of solidify the
Absolutely.
written form of it. And you also mentioned, Emily, you mentioned this about understanding and speaking. So when we talk about expressive and receptive language, your children are absorbing that receptive, like they're absorbing so much more, and they might not yet have the words to communicate, like your little one there, but they do communicate, but it may be the body language, coos, grunts, those kinds of things. So it's just the communication starts early. It's just attaching the words later on and the expressive part that comes later. But you're doing so much right now that's just lighting up the brain. Going back to what you said, Christoph, like we're not, wanting anyone to be a perfect parent. We just want present parents, and having the support of your church and your family, which is important to you, and then having a pediatrician who validates you. Just a beautiful combination to really set you up for success. And I know that you would feel this way just by knowing you. And I think that if we can just, as a community, wrap our head and heart around, when a family wins, that they have everything they need to be a thriving family, everyone wins. Like we all benefit from it. And I just love the way you're showing up and serving others. Thank you so incredibly much. You have been a blessing to me. I'm honored to be able to know you and just to have this time with you. And I can't wait to be able to share what you shared with me today with others, just to give them a source of encouragement and hope, and knowing that there are people out there who care about them and want them to be successful as parents. And it may take, finding a different pediatrician or asking more questions to engage and to learn more from their pediatrician. And that's okay. Because each family deserves the opportunity to be supported through this parenting journey.
Thank you for listening to The Critical Window. If today's episode sparked new ideas or insights, we'd love for you to subscribe and share it with others. Visit buildabrainnow.com for show notes and resources, and to connect with our growing community. Until next time, remember, every interaction shapes a developing brain.